They say the Mojave Desert is where God ran out of colors and humans ran out of luck. The Mojave is a big place. Plenty of room for secrets. Plenty of room for a man to lose himself, or find something he was never meant to have. Most people see a wasteland. Marcus Pax saw a way out. Marcus Pax. A real estate developer whose dreams turned to dust faster than a desert rain. He was down to his last 100, looking for a miracle. What he found instead was a woman named Sloane. And in a chase story, the miracle and the woman are usually the same thing, lethal. He thought he was playing a high-stakes game of poker with a beautiful woman and a suitcase full of cash. What he didn't know was that the deck was stacked, the table was rigged, and his life was the ante. This is Latent True Crime. Subscribe to this channel to follow our deep dive into true crime investigations. Marcus wasn't a bad guy. Just a desperate one. And desperation makes you stupid. It makes you believe that a stranger in a silk dress actually gives a damn about your bank account. In his thoughts he just needed one win. One break to stop the bank from taking the keys to my life. Here we're going behind the curtain of a multi-agency sting operation. We're looking at the anatomy of a perfect trap, from the criminal past of a professional informant to the forensic trail of a desperate murder. This is a story of greed, a fatal mistake, and a twist that proves that in the desert, the only thing more blinding than the sun is a desperate man's hope. The Mojave sun was a white-hot hammer, beating the life out of everything that wasn't smart enough to find shade. Marcus Pax sat in the air-conditioned gloom of a Vegas dive bar, watching the ice melt in a drink he couldn't afford. He needed a break, a miracle, or a clean way out. That's when Sloane Voss sat down. To Marcus, she was a savior in silk. But to the FBI's Nevada field office, she was Asset 742. Sloane wasn't her real name. It was a mask worn by a woman who had been caught 18 months prior running a high-end wire fraud scheme in Marseille. Facing 20 years in a federal penitentiary, Sloane had struck a cooperation agreement. Her job? To identify and test individuals suspected of being willing to facilitate money laundering for the cartels. She didn't waste time with small talk. Sloane told him a story. The kind of story that tastes like honey and smells like a trap. Her late husband, a man she described with more ice than sadness, had left a suitcase in an abandoned cabin near Zzyzx Road. $200,000 in cash. All Marcus had to do was drive. She didn't want to go herself. Too many memories, she said. Or maybe she just didn't want her fingerprints on the wheel. She promised Marcus half. $100,000 for a 2-hour drive. In the world of James Hadley Chase, if the deal sounds too good to be true, you're already dead. Marcus was desperate, desperation being a blindfold, and he wore it willingly. Marcus didn't ask why she didn't just call a locksmith. He didn't ask where the money came from. He just drove. Lust and greed are powerful blinkers. They keep you from seeing the cliff until you're halfway down it. He drove out into the shimmering heat, unaware that his old sedan was being tracked by a silent predator, a King Air surveillance plane circling 10,000 feet above the desert floor. The cabin was a tomb. Marcus broke the lock, his first mistake. A simple break-in. Inside that rotting cabin, he found the suitcase under a floorboard. It was heavy. It was real. Marcus thought he had finally won. He had the suitcase in his hand. But as he turned to leave, there was a sound, a shadow crossed the doorway, a floorboard creaking behind him. A local scavenger, or maybe just a drifter, had followed the dust cloud of Marcus's car. The man wanted a cut. Marcus panicked. He didn't mean to kill him. He just wanted him to stay quiet. In that moment, a controlled FBI sting spiraled into a chaotic murder investigation. Stick with us, because we're about to dive into the police files to see how a simple pickup turned into a manhunt, and how Sloane, the woman who started it all, had a secret agenda that the feds didn't even see coming. Inside the cabin, the air was thick with the smell of dry rot. Marcus found the suitcase, but a local scavenger named Arthur "Ratty" Miller blocked his path. Arthur wasn't part of the sting, he was an unpredictable variable. Panic is a cold thing, even in 100-degree heat. Marcus swung a heavy brass lamp. He wanted Arthur to stay quiet, but the man didn't stay quiet. He stayed dead. Now Marcus wasn't just a thief. He was a murderer. And the simple plan just got a whole lot more complicated. Marcus spent 2 hours digging a grave, but he was never alone. He should have left the money. He should have run. But the cul-de-sac was already closing. As he dug, the surveillance plane recorded the thermal signature of the body being moved. He threw the body in a ravine, covered it with sand, and got back in the car. Every siren in his head was screaming, but he convinced himself he was safe. Sloane would help him. Back in Vegas, a special agent named Miller was watching the live feed. The plan had been to arrest Marcus for the theft of government funds, but the mission had shifted to homicide. Marcus met Sloane in the shadows of a parking garage. He was shaking as he told her everything. The body, the blood, the panic. He expected comfort. He got a cold, blank stare. This is where Sloane's true character, the classic chase femme fatale, emerged. She told him, "That's a shame, Marcus. Murder is so messy. I don't think 50% covers the risk anymore." Her wire was recording every word, but she didn't call the police immediately. She leaned in and told Marcus that murder changed the deal. He thought to himself, thinking he was being smart. He'd lure her back to the cabin. 2 bodies in 1 grave. Simple math. He reached for the suitcase in his trunk one last time, just to feel the weight of his freedom. The money wasn't real. It was counterfeit. Funny money. The kind the feds use for stings. And that's when the headlights hit him. She attempted to shake him down for his remaining assets before the feds moved in, trying to score a retirement fund for herself before she went into witness protection. The realization hit Marcus just as the high beams of 4 unmarked cruisers flooded the garage. Sloane wasn't a grieving widow. She was an informant facing 10 years for her own grift. She needed a big fish to hand over to the feds to buy her own freedom. She didn't just give them a thief, she gave them a murderer. Marcus killed a man for a bag of paper and the smile of a woman who was already wearing a wire. Sloane didn't run. She simply stepped toward the lead car, adjusting her coat, and pointed a manicured finger at him. The investigation into Marcus Pax was swift. Forensic technicians combed the Zzyzx cabin, finding Arthur Miller's blood in the floorboards. The thermal footage from the surveillance plane provided the smoking gun for the disposal of the body. But the real scandal came during the trial of the People vs. Pax. It was revealed that Sloane had intentionally chosen Marcus because of his specific financial vulnerability, pushing him further than her handlers had authorized. Marcus Pax was sentenced to 30 years with the option of parole after 12 years. Marcus Pax got his miracle. He won't have to worry about his mortgage or his debts ever again. The state of Nevada provides 3 meals a day and a very small room for the rest of your life. Arthur Miller, a man who had survived 20 years in the harsh desert only to die for a suitcase of fake money, was buried in a pauper's grave. And Sloane? Because of her cooperation, her original fraud charges were vacated. She was given a new identity and a bus ticket to a city where nobody knew her name. As the handcuffs ratcheted shut, Marcus looked out toward the dark horizon of the Mojave. He had gone into the desert looking for a miracle, but all he'd found was a shallow grave and a bag of worthless paper. In the Mojave, the only thing cheaper than the land is the life of a man who thinks he's smarter than his own greed. Good night, Paradise City. Justice was served. It was a cold, cynical kind of justice where the only winner was the person who knew how to lie the best. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the darker side of human nature and the mechanics of a federal sting, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments. Did the FBI go too far by using a predator like Sloane to catch a desperate man like Marcus? We're building a library of the most gripping noir-style true crime on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story, the concluding part of this story. What happened to Marcus in detention? How did he come out? How did he plot and execute a revenge on Sloane? Until next time, watch your back.